Writing for the GAMSAT Section 2 can be a particularly challenging task. Not only are most of us unaccustomed to writing in such a confined way, but we're also bombarded with a lot of information and misinformation that spreads into all aspects of essay writing. I think at the center of this discussion is the controversial topic of essay structure. Frankly, without a good essay structure, students stand to lose all the marks that they otherwise would have gained from a good piece of writing with good ideas. You've probably wondered this to yourself. Which essay structure should I use? Do I have to stay consistent between the two topics? And which essay structure will best allow me to express my own ideas? That's what we'll be discussing in this video. Hi guys and welcome. My name's Andy. I'm a current medical student with a completed degree in the Bachelor of Arts specializing in philosophy. Today, I'll be walking you through the pros and cons of popular essay styles before finally providing my recommendations on which essay structure you should be using. First, let's take a look at the 4 common types of essay structures that students use in the GAMSAT. Number 1, we have the classic analytical essay, which focuses on exposing the facts. Number 2, we have the argumentative essay, which focuses on presenting a point. Number 3, we have the narrative or creative essay structure, which focuses on telling a story. And finally, we have the problem and solution type of essay, which is reworked to be a personal favorite of mine. First up, we have the classic analytical essay, where students aim to answer both sides of the argument in relation to a given topic. They usually start off with one side of the viewpoint in the opening paragraph, before pivoting to the counter-argument in the subsequent paragraph. Finally, students then synthesize their ideas and provide some form of discussion. This is quite an easy essay structure to follow and serves as the majority response for most students that sit the GAMSAT. There are several pros to using this essay structure. First of all, it's quite logical in its flow. Since the sides of the argument are expressed in separate paragraphs, the reader can easily follow your train of thought. It's also an excellent starting point for discussion. Students don't need to think too hard about how to use this essay structure. And that can be really quite beneficial for the type of student that is just starting out in writing GAMSAT essays. Finally, the essay structure naturally lends itself to demonstrating breadth of ideas. Since in the essay we talk about both sides of an argument in relation to the topic, it becomes easy for us to show our examiner that we have that wide range of knowledge. There are, however, some cons to using this essay structure. One of them being that insight into the topic comes quite late within the essay. So your examiner is not only concerned with the separate viewpoints in relation to a topic. So it's not just concerned with what the different viewpoints are, but they're also concerned about what your synthesis and what your understanding of these topics are, and whether or not you can provide some unique thoughts and opinions of your own. However, due to the nature of this essay structure, that kind of deeper level of thinking comes quite later on in the essay, and students can often find themselves running out of time to provide this kind of discussion. Second of all, and quite problematic for a lot of students, is that whenever we're using this essay structure to deal with unfamiliar topics, we've got to do extra work, right? Since we're not now talking about two sides of the argument, we're trying to formulate two equally strong cases for the different viewpoints. And that can eat a lot into planning and writing time, and like I mentioned before, detract from the deeper level of thinking and synthesis that the examiners are looking for. Overall, I think the classic analytical essay really serves well the student that can describe, explain, and synthesize information in a clear and concise manner. It's also really beneficial for the student that is just starting out in the GAMSAT, since it helps you think about both sides of the argument. Moving on to the argumentative type of essay. This is the essay structure where students present one side of the argument in relation to a given topic. A good piece of writing using this structure is one that can both demonstrate insight but also convince your examiner to consider your viewpoint. This essay structure serves well the type of student that enjoys writing in a persuasive rather than comprehensive manner. One of the pros for using this structure is that there is a strong sense of purpose and clear contention from the outset. Your examiner knows exactly what you're talking about and what you're arguing for, and therefore it makes it really easy to show them that you're staying on topic. Furthermore, the structure lends itself quite naturally to the continuity of ideas and evidence. This is where the same piece of evidence can be used to support ideas between paragraphs. and allows us to decrease the amount of research and idea formulation that we need to do. It also has the added benefit of giving us the extra time to clarify any complex ideas without rushing through them. There are, however, some cons to using this structure. One of them being that it can sometimes appear a little bit too repetitive. Without the proper planning and execution, students often find themselves repeating the same ideas over and over again. It can also be a bit too cliche. Now, the problem with cliche arguments isn't that everyone knows about them. It's that when we write a cliche argument, we're not really showing our examiner any form of deeper level of thinking. There's also the trap that students commonly fall into, and it's that they generalize quite often, and that happens really often in a persuasive essay. And the problem with generalizations is that it kind of puts our examiner into one camp or the other. So instead of trying to include them, they might disagree with us and the generalizations that we're making. So the fix to this is, of course, to set up the parameters for arguments early on and really make sure that we keep generalizations to a minimum. Finally, and probably quite obviously, it's difficult for us to demonstrate that breadth of perspectives in terms of a persuasive essay. It's hard for us to show our examiner that we've considered all these other ideas and counterpoints without weakening our very own idea and our very own argument itself. Overall, I think the argumentative writing style gives you the extra freedom to write on ideas that fall naturally to you. It's really beneficial to the student that enjoys writing in a convincing and compelling type of manner. Number 3, we're going to talk about the narrative and creative essay structure. This is one where students aim to tell a story that's related to a topic. Now, the story itself is usually an anecdotal one, but it aims to, include our examiner into imagine a certain time, space, and emotion. The pros of this is that you have complete control in terms of the response that you're writing. This is really good for the student that has that kind of excellent level of English mastery to really set the tone and pace for your entire essay. You can invite your examiner to imagine a certain scene and really transport them there and build that emotional connection. Furthermore, since the structure kind of naturally lends itself to talking about those human emotions, it favors the task B type of essays, which normally revolve around more personal type of topics. Finally, the creative type of essay is definitely going to be a head turner for your examiner. It's definitely going to stand out from the crowd, and especially amongst the heap of other GAMSAT essays that they might be reading. There are, however, some cons to using this structure. One of them being that it is absolutely disastrous if you do it incorrectly. This essay structure is not for the beginner writer and can take even intermediate writers like myself quite a bit of time to get adjusted to writing in that kind of more storytelling fashion. Another problem is that students can easily get swayed off topic. They get really caught up in sharing this kind of personal anecdote with the examiner that they forget to focus on the topic itself. And as ACEs say themselves, pre-written responses and responses that are off topic will be penalized quite heavily. So students definitely do fall into this trap. Finally, the creative type of essay is really difficult to prepare for. There's no singular consensus as to where is the best place to learn to start writing in a more creative type of fashion. And as I've kind of mentioned before, the creative task itself lends itself to only a small subset of overall topics. So students can definitely find themselves getting stuck on topics that they're unfamiliar with. Overall, I think the novelty aspect of using the creative and narrative essay structure is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, you're definitely going to be garnering the attention of your examiner, but on the other hand, you'll also be at a lot closer scrutiny of your mistakes. I think the essay structure is really good for the student that wants that extra freedom to dictate exactly how they want their response to be, and allows for a much wider spectrum of responses overall. And finally, we move on to my personal favorite, which is the problem solution type of essay. In this essay, students talk about this problem that's associated with the topic, how it affects them, and then provide a solution. So students normally open up, talk about this big, broad social problem that's associated with the topic, and then they form that connection and move on to the subsequent paragraph where they talk about how this problem is going to affect them, how it's going to affect the reader, how it's going to affect the examiner. And then finally, they provide some form of solution to fix the problems that they've been writing about. If you're familiar with the teaching that we've done here at Mindset, maybe you've read some of the articles that we have on our website, you'll know that we're a big fan of philosophy. And the reason we are a fan of philosophy is that it's really high yield in terms of the solutions that it can provide. Philosophy often talks about a solution to our most human problems. And that's really quite beneficial when we apply that to the kind of problem solution type of essay that we've got going on. So there are a lot of pros to using this essay structure. Number one is clarity. It's a really well-structured way for you to organize your ideas, and your examiner can easily understand the logical flow that goes on between the paragraphs. Number two, flexibility. So students have a lot of freedom in terms of moving around the paragraphs and mixing and matching as they see fit. They can also add bulk to the problem or the solution to emphasize a certain point. There's also room for you to include additional pieces of evidence or personal anecdotes if that's what you like. Number three, it's easy to follow and saves you time. The simple structure of the problem solution type of essay means it's really easy to follow and can be used by even the beginner student. It also lends itself really well to philosophical evidence, which I found is always a reliable way to have something to write about within your essays. There is, however, a slight downside to using this structure in that students, at least initially, often find it quite difficult to establish a good problem with the topic. This is something that does definitely improve with practice and patience. Overall, I think the problem solution type of essay is a refreshing change of pace. It's also a really good basis and foundation for you to express your ideas. The examiners can really clearly and quite logically follow the progression of ideas as they go on between paragraphs, and sometimes even get something out of the solution that you provide them. Here are my final thoughts on GAMSAT essay structure. There's plenty of different types of essay structures to pick from, even more than the 4 that we've discussed in this video. So here are some things to bear in mind. Number 1, experiment for yourself. Try out the essay structures at least once before making a choice. Number 2, listen to yourself. What type of writing falls naturally to you? What type of essay structure do you normally use? And what type of essay structure do you feel confident in re-implementing in the GAMSAT? Number 3, have a friend review your essays and provide feedback, and then you do the same for them. An extra set of eyes is usually a really good opportunity for you to pick up on mistakes and nuances in your own writing that you might not be aware of yourself. It's also a great learning opportunity to start thinking about the intricacies of reviewing writing. That's it, guys. If you found this video useful, we have a whole other set of high-yield articles available on our website. We've also just done a refresh of our Section 2 essay guide, so it comes with a whole new set of philosophical evidence and quote banks. Definitely check that out if you're serious about improving your essays. That's all from me, guys. Good luck for the GAMSAT.